In session 2, we're going to talk about the versions of the Book of Mormon. And this is very important. Mormons don't know the number of versions in the Book of Mormon. They don't know the dates. So if you learn this, you will be able to teach them. And they're interested in knowing their history of the Book of Mormon. So if you know more than they do about the Book of Mormon, that will establish you as a person who is authoritative and informed. And you want to be an informed Christian. You don't want to be a Christian that does, I don't know. That's not going to help a lot. So the first version of the Book of Mormon was in 1830. It was given by the gift of power of God, according to the preface, as you see. This one is lambskin leather. It's a facsimile edition. The church put it out, Deseret Book put it out, and it says this: as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints celebrates its sequential year, it is fitting that Deseret Book Company would produce the limited facsimile edition on the 150th anniversary of the publication of the Book of Mormon. This anniversary occurs in March 1980 and offers special recognition of the most significant publishing event of the century, indeed of the last dispensation. This facsimile edition matches as closely as possible the paper and binding of the first edition. So the binding is leather, just like the original. The paper is the same thickness. And then it goes on to say, the type itself will be reproduced from a first edition copy of the Book of Mormon and will be authentic in every detail. So they didn't change a thing. So this is exactly as it was published in 1830 by the Gambian Press, or whatever his name is. And it has over 500 pages of Book of Mormon. So it doesn't have any headings, and there's no footnotes. This is written like a novel. And so it just starts. It has chapters, no verses. No verses, anything, just chapters, reads like a novel. 1830. Now, many people have since then reproduced the 1830 Book of Mormon. Here's another person that's done this one here. Let's see what this one's done by. It doesn't have any name at all, just 1830. It's not real leather. It's kind of an imitation leather on this one. And then I bought these all from the church. You can't buy these from the Baptist church or the Presbyterian church. And then this one here, Mormon Bookstore. This is a recent one, 2023. It is 1830 leather-bound replica. So this one is actually really nice leather-bound. It's a limited edition by a historian. And so I had to buy one of those this year. I had one last year and gave it away. So I had to buy another one. And then I was first year I went to Utah was 1985. And about 89, I went with a couple friends of mine, and I wanted to copy the most rare Book of Mormon. And there was a barber on State Street who had a rare Book of Mormon collection, and he did not mind if I copied his book. However, he had to shut the barber store down and carry the book over with me and hand it to the actual, he actually handed it to me when I got to the copy machine. And there was a copy company there, and he put us in the back room and told the lady to leave us alone, and we were allowed to use the copy machine as long as we needed to copy the whole Book of Mormon. So I wanted it every page, and so I copied every single page of the Book of Mormon, and that's 1837. This is the second edition of the Book of Mormon, and they printed 5,000 1830s, and they didn't run out to about 1836 or 1837. So then they took, and Joseph Smith changed verses to fix things in 1837. So the most significant changes, most of the most significant changes are in this version. And then he had to make a few more changes in 1840. So 1837, this is excessively rare. This guy bought it before World War I. And so you can see I put 2 pages on a page so that I could, and I didn't put anything on the back. So the back has nothing on it. And so this is 1837. The only way I could afford it in 1837 was to photocopy this. And so what we did was I had two guys with me. One was Randy Sweet. The other was Dr. Al Brower. And Dr. Al Brower's a local guy here, and Randy was local at the time too. And we went down there, and I taped paper around the Book of Mormon, and then I had to press on the spine, inside the spine, just to make sure I got flat copies that were good copies. And I taped paper around it so I wouldn't get black edges. And then the Book of Mormon fit just fine if I pressed it down flat. But I couldn't push the go button, the green button on the copy machine. So I had one of the guys push the green button, and the other person was watching the copies come through the chute and counting, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, making sure that I got every single copy because I only had one shot at this. And I had to make two of them. So I made one for me and also made one for the barber. Because the barber was going to let people see the photocopy from now on. He said until he died, no one's going to see that 1837 Book of Mormon again. So we did that on the 1837, which is the second version of the Book of Mormon, 1837. And then I came back the next year and decided I wanted to get the rest of them because he had the rest of them. So then I did 1840 and I did 1842. 1842, most Mormons don't know it even exists as a version of the Book of Mormon. And the reason is it says Fourth American and Second Stereotype Edition, carefully revised by the translator. So Joseph Smith says he revised it in 1842. Well, we haven't found where he revised it yet. Nobody has found that yet. But he actually says he did. So if somebody has a lot of time, they could look at the 1840 and the 1842 and find the differences. Now, Cleon Skousen's son, Royal Skousen, was doing a comparison with the 1830, 1837, and 1840 Book of Mormons. And he did side-by-side comparisons on those, finding where the changes were. But he didn't know about the 1840 version. And I sent him a copy of this. Then I sent him a copy of, we scanned this, and a copy of the scanned version. He couldn't find any differences, but he didn't look far enough. So we have not looked far enough to find the carefully revised part that the translator, Joseph Smith, said he revised. So then during Brigham's time, Brigham was trying to fix the Book of Mormon again. And at this point, he didn't do it. He decided to have Orson Pratt do it. So the 1879 was done by Orson Pratt. And when Orson Pratt did it, he decided to put footnotes in. So the 1879 is the first version with footnotes in it. Now, when you say 1879, I'm using the first year of these versions. So if you find an 1843, it's a photocopy of earlier version. It could be an 1840 or an 1842. It could be that they took an 1837. In Great Britain, people would take them down and have a bunch printed. So depending on which version they had to take down. So this is the first version that was printed by an apostle, was actually, the work was done by an apostle. Well, Orson Pratt was the theologian at the time. So it would only be right that Brigham would use the best theologian he could to redo the Book of Mormon. Then the 1920, Dr. James Talmage did that one. This is the 1920 Book of Mormon. I'll show you that version there. And it'll say right 1920 in the very front. And in 1920, Dr. James Talmage took out the footnotes that were in the Book of Mormon from 1879 to 1920. He took them out because the footnotes had problems. They were trying to tell where things were. The land north, the land south, the sea east, sea west, the hill Cumorah, all these places that the Book of Mormon mentions, the city of Zarahemla, stuff like that. They couldn't find them. So rather than have problems with it, they took those things out and made new footnotes. So James Talmage fixed the Book of Mormon that way. And then in 1981, Bruce R. McConkie was the head of this translation committee. So you've got three Mormon apostles, Orson Pratt, Dr. James Talmage, and Bruce R. McConkie. These are three Mormon theologians that were fixing the Book of Mormon. So that's what we have there. Those are the versions that you have. Now, this is a 1977 model where they took the symbols that Joseph Smith copied off of the gold plates and put them on gold cover of the Book of Mormon. And notice it says Book of Mormon if you look close enough to it. And so it's a Book of Mormon with the gold cover with the supposedly reformed Egyptian hieroglyphics on it. If you read this, you can actually read it if you're anywhere close to reading English, because you can see an H and a 4 and a sideways question mark and a sideways explanation points without the points. You can see 8 minus 1 here, dominoes D, upside down W, upside down V, all kinds of things like a 4, 2, different things. As you read this, it looks like deformed English, not reformed Egyptian. So this is 1977, which means it's the 1920 version. So they just put a new date on it. This one also is a 1977. It's 1920 version. It's the 1974 Expo 74. And this is when they had Expo in Spokane, Washington. So this Book of Mormon was printed right for their Expo in Spokane, Washington. These were given out in Spokane. They're fairly rare. So those are your different versions of the Book of Mormon. Now, until recently, the only way we could get a manuscript, there's two manuscripts of the Book of Mormon, the original manuscript and the printer manuscript. The only way that you could get a copy of the manuscript of the Book of Mormon was occasionally the Mormon Church would print a original page. And so you could get that in their Instant magazine or that kind of thing. And then the reorganized church had the printer manuscript, which had almost every verse. There's just a little bit of damage. Some of the words are missing in one verse. But so I got a copy of that from Sandra Tanner, the number one person in witnessing the Mormons out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And she got it from Wesley P. Walters. And Wesley Walters told me about how he got it, so I'll tell you the story. So it's probably not in the deal there. But I was talking to Wesley on the phone, and he said, "Do you know how you got that copy?" I said, "Well, I got it from Sandra." He says, "Well, I gave her the copy. How'd you get it?" Well, the reorganized church would not lend him it was on microfilm, and you had to put it in a microfiche reader, and he said he wanted to get a copy of it because the manuscript was getting older and brittle, so they got a professional photographer and photographed it. And so they wouldn't lend it to Wesley P. Walters, but they told him if he went down to his library, they would do an interlibrary loan and he could get it in his library. So he did that. Well, when the librarian called him and said, "Come get it," he goes, "What do you mean?" "Well, we don't have a microfiche copier, so take it down to the local print shop and have a copy down there." So he actually got to carry it himself, and you might even find his fingerprints on it somewhere. So he made copies and sent them out to different ministries, and that's how I ended up with it. So that was black and white, really hard to read. Since then, the Mormon Church, in their infinite wisdom, has come up with the Joseph Smith papers. And in Volume 3, Part 1 and Part 2, they have the printer's manuscript. It's a photocopy of the printer's manuscript in full color, in really beautiful full color. So you can actually read the writing. My black and white is hard to read. You have to kind of look it up and find the words, and then you can tell what they say. But the full color here. So if you're really serious about witnessing the Mormons, you might want to go down and pay $100 for Volume 3, Part 1, and Volume 3, Part 2. And then you will have what I paid the same price for, $100 a piece for, I think they cost. And you'll have the evidence. So when I tell Mormons that they changed these verses and I tell them what the changes are, they say, "No, they haven't been changed." And I say, "Well, the reason why you tell me that no, they haven't been changed is because your eyes have not seen the changes. Look at these eyes. These eyes have seen the changes. And that's why I know that you're wrong." And when you're that confident with a Mormon, they're usually pretty much shut up. It's over. And then I tell them, go down to your own Mormon bookstore and buy these books. I did. And you'll have the books in your library. You can look up the changes yourself. If you don't like that, go ahead and get Royal Skousen's books, and I'll show you those in a second here. So this particular one here, this one is volume 5, Joseph Smith's papers, and this one is the original manuscript of the Book of Mormon. They finally decided to print the original manuscript. And so this has, you'll notice the original manuscript has really poor pages. A lot of the things are it was rotten. It got waterlogged. And so a lot of it was really bad. So they have the pages are in poor shape. Many of the pages are in poor shape. Some of them are better than others. Some are missing pieces. So this is the original manuscript of the Book of Mormon. And so never before published or printed, didn't even get snuck out. Many of the things got snuck out and published. These things did not get snuck out. The Mormon Church decided that they were going to print their own stuff. So volume 5 and volume 3, the 2 volumes of volume 3 are what you want to get. Then if you're interested in seeing someone else's work, LDS person's work, you can pull up the Parallel Book of Mormon, 1830, 1837, and 1840 editions. And this is volume 1 and volume 2. Introduction by Kurt Bench. He's no longer alive. And was done by Royal Skousen. Oh, mine's signed by Kurt. I must have bought it in Utah from Kurt Bench's bookstore. Pretty cool. Here's what it says. Marshall, I hope you will enjoy this book, which contains the original text of the first 3 editions of a landmark book and my modest effort to introduce them. All the best, Kurt Bench. And that's what it says in that one. This doesn't have anything in this. So they're side-by-side columns, much like a parallel Bible. So you get them side by side. You can see what's going on. And I think you would have a commentary on there, but I don't see it here. So at least you've got the side-by-side editions there. If you're interested in learning about Mormonism, you do have to have a library. And we'll show you my library another time. So the next section I'm going to talk about is what is basic Mormonism. And so, we talked about, I'm going to review a little bit. We talked about the 3 keys of all faiths. What are they?
Source of authority, who is God, and method of salvation.
Method of salvation, how you're saved. Source of truth, who is God, how are you saved? Okay, so when I start teaching on something, it's going to fit in one of those 3 categories, right? Everything I talk on is one of those 3 categories. Really hard class, okay? 3 categories, okay? So it's going to be, you're going to go, this is easy, because it is, okay? So I make it easy because it is easy. You can make it as hard as you want, but I don't see why. Okay, here we go. What is basic Mormonism? We're going to talk about the basics then. That's the basics there. So what's the first one? What's your source of truth? Or if you're going to seminary, it's authority, right? So what is the source of truth of Mormonism? Could it be Mormon scriptures? Would that be where you go to get your source of truth? And what are they? Well, one of them that people don't really realize and don't think too much about would be articles of faith. When you think about your church, what are your articles of faith? What should articles of faith do for you? I think of 2 things they should do. Number 1, they should be broad enough that they include all the people I want to include, but they should be narrow enough to keep those out that don't agree, right? So broad enough to include all the people that they should include, but narrow enough to keep those out that don't agree. That's real simple. Articles of faith, right? The problem with the articles of faith of the Mormon Church are, they sound like they're Christian. They don't keep anybody out. They don't even tell you what the Mormon Church believes. They don't really believe what the articles of faith say. Seriously. Okay? And one of the articles of faith, the 8th one, is the most famous one. We believe the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it's translated correctly. We also believe the Book of Mormon to be the Word of God. And you say, well, that sounds pretty good, Marshall. Talking about the Bible and the Book of Mormon. If that were the only scriptures they had, then it would be accurate, wouldn't it? If they got more and they're not talking about them, not wide enough, is it? It's including me.
Bible and Book of Mormon, if I believe the Book of Mormon. If I don't, it's like, is the Bible the Word of God as far as it's correctly translated? How about you guys? You like incorrect translations? I don't. Okay? And there are some out there. Okay? The Jehovah's Witness would be an incorrect translation. The Seventh-day Adventist, the Clear Word, would be an incorrect translation because they put the words of Ellen G. White in the scriptures. Okay? And there's a couple others that I won't mention right now, but there you go, a couple of them. So we want the correct translation. So, hey, I'm in agreement with the first sentence, aren't I? Second part, I'm not. The Book of Mormon be the Word of God. I have to check that out, wouldn't I? Of course, that's what I started. They're only talking about 2, and there's a reason why. They only have 2 in their Articles of Faith. They could fix the Articles of Faith if they wanted to. They could make it accurate, but they don't want to. Why? Because they have a prophecy. You see Jesus, and notice this is the old world, and this is the new world, right? And he's got his hands out to both, right? So Jesus is this drawing of, it's not actually a photograph, a drawing of Jesus, supposedly, over the old and new world. And since you have 2 places, you have 2 books. And Ezekiel 37 is their scripture that they like to say when the 2 books are put together, they become one in his hand, right? So you see the 2 books, you put these 2 books together and you have the fullness of the everlasting gospel with the 2 books put together. That's the Ezekiel 37 prophecy. They don't read the whole thing. It's actually talking about kingdoms because Ezekiel tells you what the prophecy really is. So Ezekiel 37, you will be hearing more about that as we go along. Here's History of the Church. I know volume 4, it says this book also tells us that our Savior made his appearance upon this continent after his resurrection, that he planted the gospel here in all its fullness and richness and power and blessing, that they had apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, and evangelists, the same order and the same priesthood, the same ordinances, gifts, powers, blessings that were enjoyed on the eastern continent, that the people were cut off in consequence of their transgression. So, similar story from the American continent. So Jesus, you'll notice here, Jesus is a sneak. You go, what? Sneak? Yeah, he's a sneak. Sneaking around behind your back, right? I mean, if you tell 12 apostles go into all the world, you don't tell them except the American continent, and you sneak around behind their back and you get 12 more apostles for the American continent, you're a sneak, aren't you? That's what I think. You get sneak Jesus, okay? Don't like that. That's by definition a different Jesus like it. Here we got the 4 scriptures that they claim publicly. After you find out they only have 2, then if you look a little deeper, like our picture with the sheep, a little deeper, oh, we got 4? We got the Holy Bible and the Book of Mormon. That's the 2 with the 2 sticks, right? Well, there's no prophecy with 4 sticks, so what do you got going on here? A problem is what we have here. And the only people that tell the Mormons that this is a problem is you and me. Because the church isn't going to say that it's a problem. They're going to go, oh, yeah. And they go, yeah, all day long until somebody says, no. They go, huh? Yeah, no. See here, 4 sticks. How's that work? I never thought of that before. Good question. Yeah, no kidding. So there we are. Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price. These are all scriptures that they accept. There's more than that. And we'll get to that in a minute. But those are the 4. And that's what the quad is. So when you're looking at the triple combination, okay, what do you got? You got the Bible separate, and you got the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants for a Great Price, bound in 1 volume. That's called a triple combination. The quad is all 4. So that's what they're selling you as scriptures. If you go to the Mormon bookstore, that's what you get for scriptures. If the missionary comes to your door, you're going to get one of these. It's just a Book of Mormon. This is the pre-giveaway paperback edition. And see, the Book of Mormon is more closer to Christianity because it's copied Isaiah in it. It's got Matthew in it. And it's got just stuff in it, okay? So, yeah.
Take those when they come on or didn't take it.
Say it louder.
If I get one kind of, I already asked them for a couple of those and didn't take it. Can you use those?
Yeah, I can't hear you.
I said, if they come, because I have run into them quite often enough, but I never take the book long because I only.
Oh, yeah, right.
Do you need them?
Yeah, well, I give them away all the time, yeah. So if they want to give them away to you, you can give them to me and I'll give them away again. So I'm going to give them to the right people, okay? Yeah, if they come to your door and they want to give you a Book of Mormon, yeah, you can take it. You can give it to me, I'll take it, and I'll give it to somebody who wants to use it the right way. Okay? So when I talk to a Mormon, I don't say the Book of Mormon is of the devil. Well, one reason I don't believe it is, it's not of the devil. But I mean, that's the standard thing you're going to get from Christians. The Book of Mormon is of the devil. If you believe the Book of Mormon, you're going straight to hell, right? I mean, that's really not intelligent. Intelligent is when they copied Isaiah in here, it's still scripture.
What do they call it?
Well, they call it something else, but it's Isaiah's in here word for word from the King James Bible. Yeah, well, it's in Nephi and all these different places. I mean, I don't know exactly where it's at because it's been a while since I looked at that, but it's in there. I mean, word for word, whole sections, you get, 10, 12, 15 pages in a row, word for word. Now, there's places where they add to and change it, but it's like I tell them, I believe the Book of Mormon as long as it's correctly copied from the King James. That's the part I believe, okay? And they look at me like, what? Because they've never heard that before. Well, as Christians, if we know what to tell them, they're going to go, what? Yeah, that's the King James. See, the Matthew, and they know it's in there, and Isaiah, because it says right in there, cross-reference, and it says to where you go, Isaiah, and it's word for word, verse for verse. Different verses, but it's still, when Isaiah changes to the next verse, it changes here too. It's copied straight out, okay? All the italicized words are no longer italicized in here, okay? I know some 20-year-olds could copy good. I think Joseph Smith is good at copying. So I believe in the Bible, wherever you want to write it on toilet paper, I'm still going to believe it's scripture, okay? You can put it in your mind, it's still scripture, wherever it is, okay?
They consider them all their holy scriptures, and if so, is it one person who wrote them?
Oh no. Different, just like the Bible has different authors. Isaiah, you got, Jeremiah, you got Lamentations, Mr. Lamentation, and
In the scriptures, like the actual books, like the preliminary record, that was comprised of.
Okay. The Book of Mormon has supposedly prophets, just like the Bible, so it's real similar that way. Doctrine and Covenants is the doctrine of the church, which has been taken out, and the covenants of the church, which is still in. Now, the covenants is the promises that God spoke, like Revelations to Joseph Smith, okay? So that's the covenant part. And so when you get Doctrine and Covenants, we'll learn as we go along, the doctrine's already gone. It was there until 1920. James Talmage took it out, okay? Because the doctrine was wrong. They didn't believe that doctrine anymore. So when you either take it out or you got to apologize. So they took it out. So, and the Pearl of Great Price is 4 books today. It wasn't 4 books originally, but it's 4 books today. And it's the Book of Moses, which isn't in the Bible, Book of Abraham, which isn't in the Bible, and it's Joseph Smith History, which isn't in the Bible, and it's Joseph Smith Matthew, which could be in the Bible, but not quite the same, okay? So you got all those things going on in there. Joseph Smith History is probably the last one. It talks about priesthood and stuff, so we'll get into that. But anyway, I hope that answers your question. And you can ask questions anytime. I'm okay with that. Just if you got a question, ask me now. Didn't you have a question, Lauren?
I did. I've had all my brothers, sisters, mom, dad, grandpas, and grandmas have been in the Mormon church. And whenever we get in a group, it's hard for us to witness to them without a little hostile aggression breaking out. So I was just wondering, how would you suggest we witness to family in a peaceful, loving manner, or hostile?
Is that a great question or what? Yeah, he asked me that during break, and I said, you got to ask me that, and I just remembered that he asked that. So, I want, and I don't mind taking breaks. It's okay to stop and do things. So this is just a real easy class. This is fun. We're going to learn as we go. How many people have experienced that? You talk to a Mormon, they get mad. Instant hot. Yeah, me too. I hardly ever experience that anymore. I mean, I do, because initially they're going to be hot because that's what they're used to doing. And then I give them 1 or 2 sentences and they calm right down. It's like, wow, I didn't know that. So I tell them something they don't know. And I don't get emotional with them. I never get emotional. It's like, you would say, golly, that guy's just like, water off a duck. He doesn't seem to ever get emotional. Well, I am emotional. I'm just like a person like you. But when it comes to Mormonism, I remember riding in a car with this guy. He decided, he was mad at the bishop and the elders, so he decided, I'm going to say a story and then I'm going to answer your question, but I always have to tell stories now and then. So he decided that he was going to go across the street to this church and find out if anybody at the church knew anything about Mormonism. So he goes across the street, and there were some women there in the kitchen, and he says, anybody here know anything about Mormonism? At a Christian church, right? And the one lady says, no, not here, but I can call somebody. So he says, okay. So they called. Marshall, there's a Mormon here. He wants to talk to somebody. Would you talk to him? Duh. Right? I don't care what I was doing. I don't even know what I was doing. It doesn't matter, right? I'm going to talk to a Mormon. So I said, sure. We put him on the line. We talked for probably 10 or 20 minutes. And he goes, well, where do you live? I said, Kennewick. He says, well, who can look at your library? I said, anybody. He says, can I look at your library? I said, sure enough. He said, well, I'm Mormon. I said, doesn't matter. He said, well, when can I look at it? I said, right now if you want. He says, how do I get there? We became best friends. Now, he still believed Mormonism. And we rode, he says, I got to take you to the gorge. They're having this creation thing up there. And it's a bunch of Christian music. And he says, if Mormonism had praise and worship music, we'd have it all. That's what he said. That's what he said. So we're riding up there and I'm asking him questions. I said, so, going to become a god someday? Yep. Really? Okay. So how many wives are you going to have? One. Well, that isn't so good, is it? Have you read D&C 132? Just like, you just ask him questions, where's he at? He goes, I like you, Marshall. He says, the thing I like about you is you don't get mad. I can tell you I believe that I'm going to become a god and that God was once a man. It doesn't bother you. I said, heard it all before. Why does it bother me, see? So, that's the kind of way that I don't seem to get that hostility. It's like, I'm not going to get emotional, so they know that, so they don't get emotional. So, hey, let's just talk, and you're so much fun to talk to because you don't get emotional. It's just like, yeah, and they're not offending me. I'm not offended. I know I'm very confident where I'm at. And when you don't know, you're not as confident. And that's the point we're going to get with this class. You're going to be so confident when you get out there. It's like, you're going to have a smile on your face going, oh, another Mormon. Oh, that's okay. We're good here, And that's what I want. So that's why I'm trying to teach it to you. I want you to know the stuff we're getting done. So the answer, how do you keep from offending someone? Well, obviously you don't know what's going to happen next. And pragmatism is, I'm going to witness to you based on what I think you're going to say. Okay, so I won't tell you the truth because I think, and we do that. It's like, well, I'm not going to bring it up because he might get mad, and I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm not going to say anything, and that's pragmatism. That is not biblical. Okay? So the issue is, how do I bring it up? Now that I want to bring it up, how do I do it and do it in a loving manner? I care. They can tell I care. I'm right there with them. They know I care. Shane Pruitt over here works with me and has been working with me for 2 or 3 years and watched me with Mormons, and he knows the Mormons know that I love them. You know that I care, and I look after them, and I had a Mormon for a boss, and all kinds of stuff. So they just know, and they know. It's like, hey, Marshall's one of the nicest guys I know. It's too bad he's anti-Mormon, and that's what they call me, an anti-Mormon. Now I'm not anti-Mormon. I'm anti-Mormonism. There's a difference, okay? And so you can correct them or you don't have to. Like when I meet a Mormon, I got to tell you another story, and this is always good. I'm riding with this guy, and he's learning. He's learning when we go back and forth to work. He likes to learn, so he's asking me questions, and we've been friends since high school. Just kind of off and on, and so he has a flat tire, and I'm in my shorts, and I don't have a coat. I said, you know what? It's snow. It was half a month ago or something when it was snowing out, and I said, you know what? I'm not really going to be any good helping you out here because I don't even have long pants on, and so, you mind if I just grab a ride with somebody? He goes, yeah, go ahead. So I said, okay, I'm a mechanic, so I normally would help, but I didn't. So the first guy walking across, I say, hey, where do you live? He goes, can I get a ride from you? Sure. So we get in the car and we're riding, right? Before we even get to the guardhouse, I said, so what church you go to? My favorite question. That's an easy one. What church you go to? He said, well, I'm LDS. What's the chances, right? What's the chances, okay? So he's LDS. So we talked all the way to my house, and he didn't want me to get out. Now, that's way out, we're talking 45 minutes to talk. And he says, the thing about you, Marshall, is, if you hadn't been a fun guy to talk to, I would have shut you off right off the bat. He told me that while we were driving the car. He says, but, you're okay. I talked to you the whole way home. We did. And it's like, okay, I'm going to come back, and next time I see you, we're friends, And I think that's the issue. That's hard. How do you do that? I didn't do that the first time I witnessed the Mormons. I just offended them big time. And you're going to do the same thing. So that's why I say, if you do it here with your family, if you go out of this room and you say, I know something now, the 3 keys of all faith, I'm going to go witness to a Mormon, you're going to offend them. I just guarantee you, because you don't have the experience yet. So you're going to get the experience on your family and offend them so they won't talk to you anymore? Or you're going to go to Utah, get the experience down there and show up and go, I'm ready now. And that's what it's at. I went to Utah after 2 years of fumbling and bumbling. And I said, man, I learned more in 4 days in Utah at the Utah State Fair than I did in 2 years here in Kennewick. So it really is good. It really is. So, okay, hopefully that answered your question somewhat. You're gonna learn as you go, because I don't have all the answers. And as you trust God and you go, I talk about the step of faith. You know, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna go, I don't know anybody. What do I do? Well, take the step of faith. Okay, God, if you don't show up, it's gonna be a mess. Okay, so that's the step of faith. Okay, I'm gonna trust God. I'm just gonna do something, and walk up to somebody and say, "Would you like to talk?" You know, I mean, I don't know, you know, and you're gonna start something, you know, and I have ways I like to witness, and everybody there has ways they like to witness, and they're all different. So you don't just stand around and watch Marshall. You've already heard me. You go stand next to Bill McKeever, you stand next to all these other people, you know, Robert Verdon, you go stand next to these people and go, oh, he had verses Marshall didn't have. No kidding, you know, and that was a really good thing you just said, you know, yeah, no kidding. I mean, I like to go stand and watch them too, because they do stuff I don't do. So anyway, that gives you kind of an idea. Quit.
It says that they believe the Bible as long as it's translated correctly, but how do they know that the Book of Mormon is translated correctly?
Good question. She's doing some depth here, isn't she? Yeah. And I was going to get into that later, but since it's a question now, basically, this is the way that they disclaim the Bible. We don't know which verses. They're not going to publish which verses are incorrectly translated. They don't do that. You're not going to find it anywhere. They don't know which verses are incorrect. They just know that there's some in there someplace, you know. So you can't really know which ones they are. So who knows if any of them are right? So the Book of Mormon, though, since we have 7 versions, I like to teach, you know, there's a, you know, you go, that would be one way. Or there's another one, you start high and go low. It's a thinking, you see? There's a, like, you know, then there's a, okay? So I like to teach that. We'll be learning that a little later. It's things that make me go, about Mormonism. One of the talks that'll last about an hour. Okay, we're going to go into their introduction to us. They want us to do something, okay? And this is something they don't want to do anymore, but this is Orson Pratt, okay? Now, who's Orson Pratt? Anybody remember that name? Which version?
Number 5.
Number 5. What date? 1879. Right. What did he do? Versified. Right. Still not columns. Okay. Good. You're gonna hear that a lot, and you're gonna get it down when the final comes. That's on the final. You're gonna get it. Okay. Okay. Here's what he says. The Book of Mormon claims to be a divinely inspired record written by a succession of prophets who inhabited ancient America. It professes to be revealed to the present generation for salvation of all who receive it and for the overthrow and damnation of all the nations who reject it. Okay, so it's one or the other. Here's what it says. The Book of Mormon is either true or false. If true, it is one of the most important messages ever sent from God to man, affecting both the temporal and eternal interests of every people under heaven to the same extent and to the same degree that the message of Noah affected the inhabitants of the old world. We know what happened to those guys, right? If false, is one of the most cunning, wicked, bold, deep-laid impositions ever palmed upon the world, calculated to deceive and ruin millions who sincerely receive it as the word of God, and will suppose themselves securely built upon the rock of truth until they are plunged with their family into hopeless despair. This is in Orson Pratt. He says one or the other. You can't go in between. It's like, well, maybe we'll make it, maybe we won't. No, it's either going to get you to heaven or it's going to get you to hell. Orson Pratt says that. Okay? Fifth, yeah. Fifth edition, right. You're correct. 18. Question.
They don't consider that scripture, though.
No. This is apostles' writing. Now, good question. Actually, a good statement. It wasn't a question, was it? Kind of, almost. Okay, so why am I using something from an apostle? And they're going to go, wait a minute, that's not scripture. Mormons are going to try and get you just to the written scriptures, the 4, right? That's not scripture, Marshall. Oh, okay. So what you're telling me is your apostles don't know the truth? Your leaders don't really know where they're going? So you're telling me that if the Mormon prophets and apostles don't know Mormonism, the question I have for you is, who does? Right? Who knows it?
Apostle.
He's a theologian and an apostle, yes. Now, when I talk about apostles, I'm only almost always going to just quote from apostles. And some of them are not very well theologians, and some of them are. Most of the ones I'm going to quote from, you're not going to hear a lot of apostles out there because I don't quote from them because they're not really theologians. I'm going to quote from Mormon theologian apostles and prophets. There's theologian prophets too. Joseph Smith has to be one, right? Brigham Young would have to be one. So you got two Mormon prophets that are theologians too. I mean, they're making the theology of Mormonism. If you don't believe in Joseph and Brigham, can't be Mormon. So I tell people, I'd be a Mormon today if you don't mind, but I just don't believe in Joseph Smith, Brigham Young. I don't believe in John Taylor, third prophet. I don't believe the Book of Mormon is true. I don't believe the Doctrines and Covenants for the great price. That's what I told that kid on the curb. And I said, I don't believe that. And I put it at the temple. I don't believe that's the church either. He said, that don't make no sense. You can't be Mormon and not believe that. I didn't talk about Jesus. And I pointed to him and I said, this is the thing that got him. I said, you don't believe the first vision. And he goes like, oh, that means I'm not Mormon anymore. Just like that. So it's really easy. You don't always know what's going to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen. I can tell you what's going on. Another question.
What do they consider the president of the church? What do they call him? Is he
The president of the church? Okay, good question. How does the church organized? And there is a presidency, which is considered of the prophet and his first and second councils. So that's called the presidency. They're all called presidents. And if you have a president, like if you have a local bishop and stake president, he's a stake president, so they might call him a president. He's in part of the presidency, because he's a stake president, which is kind of over more wards than just one. So bishop's only over one ward, which would be like a congregation. And each church has 2 to 3 wards in the church, so they rotate through the sanctuary and through the Sunday school hour and the priesthood hour. And that's how that works. Okay, going on. And I don't hear very well, so I have to turn this off when I'm listening to you. 8th article of faith, we covered that already. Ezekiel 37, remember that? Ezekiel 37, there's two sticks, you might want to look that up. Okay? And see what's going on. And like when you're reading it, it's the stick of Ephraim, the stick of Jacob, or something like that. I can't remember, it's been a while, I haven't really reviewed it. But stick of Joseph, and anyway, you look that up, and if you read on down, it's going to say 2 kingdoms are divided. It's talking about when they get back together, and that's what the sticks represent. Here's a quote from Joseph Smith. I told the brother in the Book of Mormon was the most correct book of any book on earth and keystone of our religion. A man could get nearer to God by abiding his precepts than by any other book. This is a very famous saying. Mormons know it. If they've been Mormon very long, they've heard it 1,000,000 times. So it'd be good for you to know it. What's wrong with this statement? You have to talk loud because I don't hear. You know anything wrong with that statement?
Any other book.
Any other book? You're on the right idea. What's wrong with that statement?
There's 7 books.
What?
There's 7 Book of Mormon.
Okay, Book of Mormons. Okay. Anything else?
I told.
Okay, that's Joseph Smith. I told the brethren. So he's telling his people, he's telling the Mormons. I told them that the Book of Mormon was the most correct book of any book on earth. Now, when you're looking at the most correct, here's the issue, okay?
He's saying it's not without error. He's saying it's the only.
Yeah, now what's he comparing it to? This is the key issue. What's he comparing it to? He doesn't say Bible. You're making an assumption. You're making an assumption. The only word he uses is correct. The most correct book
Most correct.
of all the incorrect books, correct? Would that be right? He's the most correct book of all the incorrect books, which puts it in the group of
False.
incorrect books, doesn't it? If you just use the English language, that'd be a problem, wouldn't it? Would you like to have somebody point that out to you as a Mormon? Your most correct book is part of the incorrect books.
Not totally correct, it's close.
I mean, this is supposed to be good, but it isn't good when you read it. It's the most correct of all the incorrect books, right? Which is still incorrect, isn't it? Would that be like not inspired? We have the uninspired version. This is one of the famous statements. And now you know what's wrong with it. That's not on the final. Okay, some things we're going to cover in class. I like to call it Book of Mormon verses. There's a disclaimer in the front of the Book of Mormon. Basically, it says it's not true. You have any of those in the Bible, by the way? The disclaimer says it's not true. Before you get into the actual verses, before verse 1. Yeah, they have one of those. And then Nephi, this is like First Nephi. I didn't put a first on there, but First Nephi chapter 1, verse 3. You guys got your Book of Mormons? Let's go look at the Book of Mormon, okay? On the first day, let's open our Book of Mormons. Let's look at a verse on the first page, okay? The first page. Before we go to verse 3, let's go to verse 1. Because I want you to know two of them on the first page. And then first page, okay? We're just going on the first page. We're starting at the beginning, okay? Verse 1. I, Nephi, having been born of goodly parents, therefore I was taught somewhat in all the learning of my father. See, now, there's a contrast going on here. You don't see the contrast yet, but I'm going to explain it to you. As soon as you see the contrast, the light's going to go on. You're going to go, huh? Okay? Goodly parents. I would rather be born of godly parents. You want godly or goodly? Would that be like a step down? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I want godly parents, okay? So this isn't really so good. It's not as good as I want. I mean, my parents were goodly parents, but they weren't godly parents. Yeah, they spelled it wrong. It's this way in every version. It's even this way in the manuscript, okay? So it still says goodly everywhere. There's no controversy about this word. Goodly is there, every version, okay? That'd be a problem. Just a minor problem. It's not so bad, but we're starting off that way. It'd be kind of nice if the first verse was good, okay? But it's only goodly, it's not godly. So anyway, now we're going to verse 3, and this is one of my favorites. I have it memorized, so, because I use it so much. I've never sat down and memorized any verses of the Book of Mormon. I just use them so many times that they just, happen. So, Nephi says, I know that the record which I make is true. Okay, so he has a knowledge that's true. That'd be good, right? And then he says, I make it with my own hand. That'd be first-hand information. That'd be good too, right? And then watch the words. I make it according to God's knowledge. Did you see the words?
My knowledge.
Huh?
His own knowledge.
I like to put my finger on the word my and say God's knowledge and let the Mormon correct me. I'm wrong here, right? Yeah, you make it according to God's knowledge, right? And he goes, no, it's my knowledge. Really? You mean this is the wisdom of man or God? In my scriptures. In your scriptures. In wisdom of man or God? That'd be the wisdom of man? Oh, that's what I thought. I'm not so sure I like that. Would you like to have the wisdom of man in your scriptures or the wisdom of God? This is the first page. How much farther do I need to go? That'd be it, wouldn't it? Would you be done? The first page. I went many years without ever seeing that. Many, many years without ever seeing that. If you'd taken my class 5 years ago, I might not have been able to tell you that. So I'm always learning stuff. So now you have a favorite verse in the Book of Mormon, right? I make it according to God's knowledge? I don't think so. Okay? Every version is that way. And those are the kind of little tidbits you're going to get from this class. All right. Now, I have another one. How many minutes have I got now? I got quite a few, don't I? Okay. I'm just going to kind of go over, this is disclaimer stuff. This will be Book of Mormon. Now, I'm going to ask you Book of Mormon questions. What are the three does that fit? Is it authority?
Authority.
Is it who is God, or is it how it's saved? Authority. So this would be my source of truth. Okay? So I'm having problems with my source of truth. Would that be a problem? Okay. Here we're going to talk about the God of the Book of Mormon. See, now would that be it would be my source of truth? Who is God? How are we saved? Which one's that? Be number 2, wouldn't it? Okay. And here we have Jesus is the Father. Now, can you believe Jesus is the Father? That would be in the Book of Mormon. So that would be number 1, number 2, and number 3. Yeah. It's all easy, isn't it? Jesus is a grandson. Ever heard about Jesus' grandson? Neither have they. But you're going to be shocked when you see that one, okay? And that's going to be the future because we're going to get to that. But what I'm doing now is kind of giving you just a little overview. I'm not even going through all the stuff. I'm giving you some light duty stuff and some basic, I should say, not light duty. It's all good stuff. Okay. Here's what I call the disclaimer. Then we call this the paragraph, and it's in the front of the Book of Mormon. So you can get your Book of Mormon. Let's go look it up so you can find it. All right. So open your Book of Mormon, and it's before the first verse. All right. So we're going to look for the table of contents, and then if you don't have the picture edition, it's across the page. It's called a brief explanation of the Book of Mormon. So if you have the picture edition, you got to turn a few pages before that. If you don't have a Book of Mormon, you might want to raise your hand. We'll get you one. Okay. Ready to get Book of Mormon? You need Book of Mormon? Here, I get the turn for you. Okay, you got it? Okay. Okay, so turn open to this page here. It says a brief explanation of the Book of Mormon at the top. Okay, you guys got one over there? Pass that back there, will you? Okay, everybody on that page? If you got an old version, you don't have it. Okay, you got to have a new version. This will be a new version, so you're going to need a new version. Okay, so you might share with some people so you can see what's going on there. Okay. Now, what does this say? About this edition, at the bottom of the page. There's 2 sentences at the bottom of the page. About this edition, some minor errors in the text have been perpetuated in past editions of the Book of Mormon. This edition contains corrections that seem appropriate to bring the material into conformity with pre-publication manuscripts and early editions edited by the prophet Joseph Smith. I had the wrong deal up here. That's what we're looking for right there. Okay, that's what we're looking for. I had the wrong page. Sorry. So this is the paragraph we're looking for down here at the bottom. That one right there, about this edition. And it's on this page here, brief explanation. I had the wrong slide up. Sorry about that. Okay? Some minor errors in the text. Okay, so we're going to go through that. And I've got a little slide here. If you want one of these, I can actually make you a copy of it. That's not that one. This one here talks about the words I like to talk about. So I want to talk first off, and I don't have that down here, but the first one is minor errors. So it's not on that list. Minor errors. Now, here's the deal. If I have problems in my Bible, and I say there's minor errors in the Bible, that's not too bad, right? But if I say there's major errors in the Bible, how many people are going to get out? You know, it's like, major errors? That's not good, right? Well, with the Book of Mormon, they're admitting minor errors. Now, minor errors, they could probably tolerate a few of those, you know, maybe the printer didn't do so good, or who knows what happened, but there could be some problems, right? If they admitted any more than that, though, thinking people are going to get out, right? So this is the worst they can admit and not have an avalanche. I mean, see, it doesn't sound so bad. Minor errors, you know, it's not, you know, but it's the worst they can admit. Major errors? That'd be a problem, right? So some minor errors in the text have been perpetuated. That's the next word I like to talk about. Perpetuated in past editions of the Book of Mormon. So I like to ask them, who's the perpetrator of these perpetuations? The Baptist Church? Methodist Church? Pentecostal Church? The God of the Book of Mormon? Perpetuator of these minor errors? Prophets? Mormon prophets? Okay. The true church. The true church. The Mormon church is the true church, right? The true church is the perpetuator of these true errors. These are true errors, right? I mean, when you think about it, you go, I guess so, you know? It's like, yeah, you know, it's the first time they've seen this. They're not going to see it unless you help them with it. It's in the front of every Book of Mormon since 1981. I did not want to teach this for a long time because I did not want them to change it. Now there's so many volumes out there, I can teach it publicly, and it's okay now because there's so many out there, they can't erase it, you know? So they have a really good erasing stuff.
I guess they say under the drink, they brought it into conformity.
You're going to understand it as I go.
Okay.
Okay? I'm going to cover every word that I think is important. You'll understand it at the end. Okay, here we go. Corrections. This edition contains corrections. Well, I hope so. Now, I like to take my Book of Mormon at this point, and I like to ask them now, it contains corrections that seem appropriate to bring the material into conformity. Okay? So I'm going to tell them what the conformity is. I didn't bring them this time, but the conformity is with pre-publication manuscripts, there's 2, and early editions edited by the prophet Joseph Smith. And you know how many there are. How many are there? 4. 1830, 1837, 1840, 1842. See how important that slide I had up there earlier is? Because you can tell them they don't know the different versions. They don't know the dates. 1830, 1837, 1840, 1842. You know them. Joseph Smith was assassinated when? 1844. Good. Okay, so I'm going to keep repeating that. That's on the test. You'll get it right. That's the way it's supposed to be, right? If you teach it, then they get it. Okay, so it contains, the second part is it contains corrections, which would be what I'd want, right? I want the errors out. Now, where did the errors come from? I have to ask the question, okay, now we got the errors in here. You have 3 choices. A lot of 3s around here, okay? 3 choices. They came from God, they came from man, they came from the devil, right? And I like to give them the 3 choices, okay? So, now, we're all going to agree it didn't come from God. So you have two choices. It came from man or the devil. So we don't really think the devil's in our scriptures. So let's just go with man, okay? And they always go with me on that one. They don't want to go with the devil in their scriptures, okay? So they always go with me. It just works. So okay, so we're gonna go through this. The work of man in here. So we found out that we have the work of man, not the work of God in our scriptures. Got to get those minor errors out of there, right? Now we're gonna put something back in there, and you have three choices. Okay, you can put the work of God back in there. You can put the work of man back in there. You can put the work of the devil back in there, right? So what do we get back in there? They tell us in this sentence. Did you see it? It's right there. Did you see it? Seem appropriate. This edition contains corrections that seem appropriate. You ever heard of it? Thus saith the Lord. Seemeth the Lord. You know, I mean, I guess it's okay. You know, thus seemeth the Lord. He's not sure. The Lord doesn't know. So if they put corrections that seem appropriate, we know who it's not from, don't we? It's not from the Lord, right? So we have two choices now, right? The work of man or the work of the devil. So you took the work of the man out or the work of the devil out, and you put the work of man back in. What are we messing with? You know, what good is that? Okay, so I think that answers your question a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, I guess, are they saying, so what they're basically saying is that this edition is going to attempt to, in their best ability of man, to make it in accordance with Joseph Smith's original writings?
No, that's not what they're saying. That's what they want you to think. Okay, let's go back to pre-publication manuscripts. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Pre-publication, man. So the manuscripts that never existed.
No, pre-publication. When you take something to be printed, back in those days, they didn't have typewriters. Okay, you handwritten manuscript.
So those manuscripts.
And that's pre-publication, okay? There's the original edition, original manuscript, and then there's the printer manuscript because Joseph didn't want to lose the pages. So he made a whole other manuscript. And as I'm the printer and you're going to bring me a manuscript, I got to be able to tell I's from E's. It better be neat.
So I made some copyist errors.
Could be. Okay, it doesn't say that. But what they're doing, okay.
That's what I'd say. Those were copyist errors.
Okay, now go with me with this one. I'm going to flip this off. Because I don't have anything to show you up here. So let's just do this. Gonna over here, these are pre-publication manuscripts, okay? And early editions edited by the prophet Joseph Smith, right? Okay, these are put on a printing press and they're bound, they're books. Okay, I'll show you what one looks like. This is a facsimile reprint of the 1830. So this one is like that one. Okay, I'll send it around. You can look at it. It doesn't have, it's just like a novel, no verses. Okay, so you've got one there to look at. This one has no verses. This one has no verses, and that one has no verses. When was it versified?
79.
1879. Okay, by who?
Pratt.
Orson Pratt. Who was the author of these?
Well, the editor of the third.
Yeah.
4, and he said the author.
Editor here, author here, and editor here. You're right. Excellent. Very good. That's not on the test, but yeah. Okay. So these are pre-publication manuscripts. What's a manuscript look like?
Handwritten.
Yeah. Okay. Handwritten manuscripts. These are typeset, right? There's type. Printed. Okay. Here's what he says. This edition contains corrections that seem appropriate to bring the material into conformity with pre-publication manuscripts. They don't tell you how many, so you have to know that. And early editions edited by the prophet Joseph Smith. Now, why do you make a different edition? Because it's different. How does different conform? It's opposite. So when do they conform?
They should have stuck with those because those have never been produced.
Except these aren't exactly conforming either, because when you copy, you don't always copy right. So there are problems with copying, like I instead of E, or L instead of T, right? Because it's handwritten. This was the one that was dictated, the original. This was the one that copied the dictated one that went to the printer, okay? So let's label those. This is original.
Original meaning that Joseph Smith wrote it?
Original meaning Joseph Smith spoke it, and he had a scribe writing it,
Thought it was given to him by Moroni or one of their.
given to him by revelation, according to them, okay? By revelation. Moroni, he got the plates from Moroni, but he read the plates, and he didn't even have to read them because he got inspiration. So he could understand them, he could read them, and all that. So this is the original. This one here is the printer. Printer copy. And copy means copy, but nobody's perfect, right? So there are changes between these two here that you would expect of a copyist changes, okay? No doctrinal changes, just copy problems,
We're assuming.
okay? So does that make them conform? Or are they different?
Different.
That's right.
Do we have copies of, do we know for a fact they didn't match up? I mean, or is that just something?
I wouldn't say it if I didn't know it.
Okay, no, that's what I'm asking.
This is a copy of the,
Those documents exist, is what you're saying.
yeah, if you want to see one, we can put it on the computer and you can actually see one, okay? And Dave here has done the work on that, scanning it and the whole shebang, and we're talking months of work. Okay, so we got this on that disc, those two discs, and we put this one on the two discs so you could compare side by side. If you have a computer with two screens, you could put one up here and go line by line. And you can see, your eyes can see.
I thought they were referencing documents that just don't exist, but we had to take somebody's word for it, and they did.
No,
That's how we got
no. The document that doesn't exist would be the gold plates over here. Okay? That means the one you can't find. Okay, so you're on to something there. We're just getting it a little more accurate, okay? So, original printer copy, 1830, 1837, 1840, 1842. Do they conform with each other?
I'm guessing not.
No, they don't. So how can you make your current copy conform with something that doesn't conform?
Cannot.
No, not possible.
You make
So is this telling the truth? Or could this be a lie?
Could I?
Yeah.
And now, Jerome and Tenor, didn't they do some side-by-side comparisons? Showing
Of some of the verses, yeah. They have a book. What they did was a side-by-side comparison with the 1830 and the 1920 version. They call it a 64 version, but it's the same thing as the 1920, before 81. And they found 3,913 changes in the Book of Mormon. Word changes, not commas, periods, that kind of stuff, just words. You can imagine with 3,900, when they did the 1981, it was over 4,000 word changes. Okay, and so with 4,000 word changes, do you think maybe there's significant ones? Could be, but only way you'll know is if your eyes see them, right?
you remember they had people that come back at you and say, well, there's different translations of the Bible.
Yeah.
And
Of course I do.
what was written from the original.
There's
How do you
some
know
meaning
whether?
Of course I do. Of course I do, yes. The difference, and there's a major difference going on. Did you guys all hear the question? Okay, major difference. With the Bible, I have the same problem with copying, okay? You got the original, okay, manuscript written by, let's say, Paul, you know, and then people copied, right? So you got all these copies of the original. And you're going to have copyist problems because copying is not necessarily inspired. We see evidence that copies are not necessarily inspired. We have versions of manuscripts, okay? But we have thousands and thousands of manuscripts. And we can look back and intelligently discover what the truth really is. There's no verses that talk about who is God or how you're saved that are in question, okay? So the basics of the Bible are never in question. However, with the Book of Mormon, it's different. We have about 2/3 of the original is existent today. We have all of the pre-publication manuscript in existence today. So we know that there's some minor copying problems. But if you want to go to the accuracy, we're going to learn that this was inspired. The manuscripts weren't inspired. So if you really want to do the inspired, you will match the manuscript. And we'll also find out that the 1830, the printer was an honest person. He did the best he could to copy the manuscript. So if you want the best copy of the original, you have to go with the 1830, because from there we have dishonesty. That's different than our translations of our Bible, most of them. You want to talk about the Jehovah's Witnesses or somebody like that, yeah, there's dishonesty there. But we're talking about most of the translations that were up until maybe even 1980, really honest translations. Some of the modern ones we got now, you have to watch it, okay? That's the difference. Now, when you tell them that, they go, it kind of freaks them out a little bit. It's like, well, this is a different thing going on, and that our leaders aren't trying to deceive. Yours have the ability to tell us the truth, and they don't want to.
Well, can't you also throw in a piece about the gold plates were taken back?
Of course, yeah. Well, the gold plates were taken back, so now she's bringing back to heaven. Yeah, so you can't see them. So now what she's bringing in is the gold plates are back to heaven. You can't see the gold plates. Remember I said that's the one thing that probably doesn't exist? Well, that's what I believe doesn't exist. You can't look at it right now. The issue, though, is if you look at your front of your Book of Mormon, let's go to the Book of Mormon and let's read what the Book of Mormon says in the front, okay? And that would be, I think, on the first page, yeah, this one right here. It says the Book of Mormon, and it talks about account of a handwritten hand of Mormon, okay? That page right there. So find that page right there. So you get that page. It's going to say, wherefore is an abridgment of the record of the people of Nephi, also of the Lamanites, written to the Lamanites, who were a remnant of the house of Israel, and also to the Jew and Gentile, written in the way of commandment, and also the spirit of prophecy and of revelation, written and sealed up and hid up unto the Lord, that they might not be destroyed, to come forth by the gift and power of God. So if it came forth by the gift and power of God, it talks about the interpretation, the last line there, thereof, by the gift and power of God. So if God has the gold plates and works through Joseph to write this down, how many words are wrong? Thank you. Yeah, none. So if this is correct 100%, it'd be just like the inspiration of Paul, 100%, right? In the very original manuscript. This is a copy of that, pretty darn close, right? Probably no real doctrinal changes, right? So that would be just about as good and pretty darn close. And good enough for you and me, because we're not perfect anyway, so that's just fine. Well, if you want to go with this, with the inspired version, and you don't have all of this, but you got most of this, you would just make sure you filled it in with what you got here, and it's the best you can get today. Okay? That's pretty much what we're doing with our scriptures, but that's not what the Mormons did. So when you show them the way it works, it's like, see, what you guys got is dishonesty. What we got is honesty. When somebody says we're going to conform with things that don't conform, is this obviously an error here? How can these ever conform? They don't conform, so what we got today is not in conformity with the original manuscript. I can guarantee you. Not in conform with this one, and not in conformity with that one, okay? By definition. Okay. So, that was pretty good. We had a lot of questions. And so let's go to this page here. That's the one I threw up there earlier. What's that? Erase the board. Okay, gotcha. We can do that. Okay, this one here is the introduction page of the Book of Mormon. And it says, the Book of Mormon is a volume of Holy Scripture comparable to the Bible. It is a record of God's dealings with the ancient inhabitants of the Americas and contains, as does the Bible, the fullness of the everlasting gospel. I've got a brochure on this you're going to love. Okay, the fullness of the everlasting gospel. This is something we're going to get into in the future, but here we see a thing that they're telling us that the Bible and the Book of Mormon both independently contain the fullness. Now, fullness to Mormons is the same kind of thing as inspiration to us. Okay, so we'll get to that next week. I'm going to do a couple question and answers. Well, I got to show you one more thing. Here's something that this is a Mormon corporate empire. Mormons got exposed by one of their own. The guy's name is Anson Shoup. He was one of the. He's like a guy who writes books, and John Heinerman was the Mormon that helped write the book. And the bottom is quite interesting. This is the page inside the book. I photocopied it. This is my copy. Mormonism is true no matter what. John Heinerman, the author. Mormonism is true no matter what. You get that mentality. If you let that stop you, you won't see any converts. When my buddy, who you're going to meet on the 4th week, because I'm going to be gone, he's going to come and give you the first vision. He told me, you'll never convert me. And I told him, you're right. I don't convert anybody. It's not my job. Holy Spirit does that. And I said, you'll have to deal with God. And I told him, don't you ever get out of the Mormon church till you know the Mormon church is wrong. And he said, really? I said, yeah. From Marshall Elm Road? Yeah, from Marshall Elm Road. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite, right? So you got to be convinced. So if I'm wrong, I tell people, convince me where I'm wrong. I want to know. So that's the final part of this talk. And so we have any questions? We have a couple minutes left, I think.